Welcome to Reputation Revolution. This is the podcast where we help individuals like you to establish your voice in the marketplace, enhance the credibility of that voice, extend the reach of your story and your message, and finally, extract value from your efforts in building a meaningful personal brand that's both recognized and respected. Now, on with the show.
G'day and welcome to the show. My name is Trevor Young. It's pretty tough running a business today, getting your name out there and connecting with clients and customers and the people who influence them, especially if you lack a sizable budget to do so. Traditional advertising is rarely effective these days and is out of reach for most small business owners anyway. While many default digital marketing tactics no longer seem to work as well as they used to. But there is a way through for those entrepreneurs who are willing to explore some new ideas, while at the same time be respectful as to how they show up in the marketplace. At the Reputation Revolution, we are all about building a sustainable base of communications for our professional personal brand, which for many of us also adds considerable weight to the overall marketing of the businesses we run. In many cases, we are the business. We look at strategic PR and communications and all that entails, including content creation for our owned media channels. We cover social media, of course, as well as earned media such as publicity and media relations, influencer relations, public speaking, etc. Growing an audience of followers and subscribers is also part of the program. An audience of fans and allies, champions of our personal brand of what it is we do and stand for, an audience made up of potential advocates and influencers, clients and customers. But can we go deeper and build a genuine community around our ideas or a specific topic or issue? Community as a concept has been kicking around for a while now, but it's taken on new significance in recent times for many of the aforementioned reasons. At best, it's grossly misunderstood, and at worst, it's been consigned to the bin of marketing buzzwords, but we're about to change that today. Today's expert is going to give us the rundown on communities from a strategic marketing standpoint. Indeed, he's just released a book on the topic. His name is Mark Schaefer, and the book is called Belonging to the Brand: Why Community is the Last Great Marketing Strategy. Mark is one of the world's leading marketing futurists and keynote speakers. He's also a best-selling author, a veteran blogger and podcaster, a business consultant and educator of note. He's a true thought leader in a world where there are plenty of wannabes, and he embodies all the things we talk about here on the Reputation Revolution show. Let's meet him, shall we? Mark, welcome to the show. I think this is your third appearance on the podcast.
I think it's 3. Yep. Thank you.
And every time we got a book, we got appearances, which is fantastic because you are very
prolific. That's why I write
prolific.
books. So you'll call me up.
I know.
It's the only way I get FaceTime with you, dude.
Thank you for your time. Look, firstly, congratulations on the new book, Belonging to the Brand. It's a very timely release, I think, given that, we know that traditional advertising doesn't work as anywhere near as much. And, even some of the default digital marketing tactics are no longer working the way they used to. And I think that, you're coming up with these whole new ideas all around community. How'd you come to write the book? What was the process like? I think you sort of been writing it for a couple of years.
Yeah, well, the ideas really started in 2018. I was writing a book called Marketing Rebellion. And in that chapter, Marketing Rebellion is sort of like a wake-up call. Like, our traditional marketing doesn't work like it used to. What do we do about it? And I wrote a chapter in that book about belonging and community. And I predicted that this could be a really important idea for marketing in the future. When I finished the book, Trevor, I just thought, that is the most important chapter in the book. That is profound. That's really where the world is going to go. If you think about the traditional ways we've connected with customers and how they're like going away, the last thing we have left is community. We've always had community. We always will. So that's going to be there. Then 1 year after I wrote that book, boom, pandemic happens. And now all of a sudden, people are naturally migrating to online communities in record rates. And people started telling me, Mark, the things you wrote about in that book are coming true. And so it was that had been in my mind, Trevor. The other thing that had been in my mind was, this trend of the global mental health crisis. I don't know how it is in Australia. It is in the news, in the media, everywhere, every day. And it just seems to be getting worse. And the headline that just shook me to my core was a major story in the New York Times that said, this is the loneliest generation, talking about Gen Z. And it just, it hit me very deeply. As you know, I tell a story in the book about my loneliness when I was a kid and, how I was really kind of on the brink of sanity, perhaps. And belonging to a community changed everything in my life. And it's like, wow, we have this whole generation of people who are isolated and lonely and depressed. What if they don't have this opportunity I had? Like, it just makes me so sad. And so I started exploring more about this idea of community. And what I discovered, it's probably the greatest overlooked marketing opportunity in the history of marketing opportunities. It's right there in front of us.
Yeah, they're big picture things that you've weaved together. You in the book, you kick off by explaining these three global mega trends that are colliding in a way that make brand communities or communities the future of marketing strategy. Can you take us through those trends? Obviously, the mental health one is one of those. Well, and the issue's the same in Australia. We know in England, of course, they've got a minister for loneliness, similar issues there. It's a global issue.
Well, we already hinted at or talked a little bit about this idea in marketing rebellion that traditional marketing doesn't work like it used to. So that's trend number one. And then the mental health issue is just, I think it's going to be one of the most important trends for business for at least the next 10 years. That's staring us in the face. Then the third one is I've been really involved in a lot of the new technology coming out of Silicon Valley in terms of Web3, NFTs, metaverse, and it's very complicated. It's very geeky, but when you cut through all that language, what it really is a new way for people to belong. It's already happening. So you put those three things together, and it just makes sense that community is staring us in the face. It's sort of been misused because most communities fail because companies start them to try to sell stuff. That doesn't work. And yet, and 70% of the communities that make it are focused on like customer service. Like, okay, you got a problem, go in our community, solve the problem so you don't have to talk to one of our customer service people, which is perfectly fine. But almost every business is overlooking the opportunity of building that emotional connection. That's what brand marketing is all about. And it's staring at us right in the face with this opportunity with community.
And you go into the book about, some really great examples of that, which I'll get you to touch on shortly. The word community, like everything in the marketing lexicon, has been, let's say, bastardized within an inch of its life to the point where it's pretty meaningless. What do you say to, when you're talking to marketers and business owners and, corporations and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Do they get what real community is? I mean,
no, almost
just mentioned
never.
that it's about emotional emotional connection and belonging.
If you talk to many companies,
show us that.
Yeah. I mean, you talk to many companies and they talk about our community. Well, what they're really talking about is maybe their list of customers,
Yep.
or their Twitter followers,
Yep.
or their blog readers. So, and I'm not dismissing that, because all those are important. I talk about how they're connected
Forerunners
in my book. And, but all of this, the main idea is we want to create these connections, and social media connections are weak relational links generally. It's awesome because you have the opportunity to connect to people you've never known before. That's how you and I got connected.
Yep.
Right? Okay.
Yep.
Now, what's next? If you can move people from social media to your content, subscribe to your content, your podcast, my blog, a video series, now you've got an audience. That's even better. Because people are opting into you. They're saying, I believe in you. I believe in what you and your brand represent. And it's okay for you to send things to me and even to market to me. That's cool. However, if you go away, the audience goes away. The ultimate in emotional connection is community. Because, and this was one of the most eye-opening pieces of research that I came across. And it's sort of like makes your head spin about leadership, about the opportunities of community, about the psychology of community. And the research was this: the most important emotional bond in the community is not the customer to you. It's the customers to each other.
Yep.
It almost makes like the mindset of the community should be, let's turn these people into friends. That's what keeps them there. And here's what the research says. That friendship, that love, that bond between those friends transfers to the brand. And it creates this emotional switching cost. Because if you leave this brand, you leave this community, you're leaving your friends behind. So it's really, there's a lot of profound ideas in this book. I mean, I went down many psychological and sociological rabbit holes that I think have not been excavated before, and interpreted it through the lens of brand marketing. I think even people with vast community experience will read this book and go, oh wow, I kind of noticed that, but now it makes sense. Community managers are telling me that they had kind of been disheartened, and now they feel energized by the book. They feel more focused by the book. So it fits for really anybody in marketing.
And I guess the key too is, while in one sense the book's for big companies and everything, but it's not. Community can be for the individual, and of course we're a bit more about the individual and personal branding and people running their own businesses on this show.
I think the best case study in the book. It's the first time. This is my 10th book. I did something in this book I've never done before. I devoted one chapter to one single person. It was going to be you, but you wouldn't return my calls. It's Dana Malstaff. She's a solopreneur.
Yep.
And she's built a community of 70,000 people in a Facebook group. And in her first, I think it was her first 9 months with this group, she had a 6-figure income. I mean, it didn't start at 70,000. It started slowly, right? But it built and built and built and built. And now she's created this massive machine, this massive community. And the thing that's remarkable about it is her business is doubling every year. She's selling everything she makes: courses, coaching, consulting. She's got a paid membership. She does events. She has no sales team. She has no marketing team. She has no marketing budget, which is like the coolest thing ever. The ultimate marketing of community requires no marketing, at least as we think of it. If you have a community of 70,000 people. Or there's another community in the book with 30 people that drove $40 million worth of revenue for a real estate company. If you have a community that loves you and supports you, you don't need SEO anymore.
Yeah.
You don't need ads. You don't need branded content. You just need to create a safe place for people to come and a unified purpose that makes them want to visit.
And Dana's, that was a great case study, and perfect what you're talking about, and how, an individual who's got passion and a vision can make something happen. The technology is there for them to do it today. She's the founder of, you'll say Boss Mom. I'll say Boss Mom. And it's a business building community in the US. Dana Melstaff, and what I like about what you've done in the book is you've turned it over to them and they've told their story. So it's well worth it, just to see it brought to action. I mean, you often use great case studies and examples, so it's not just theory, but you see it in action, and
I learned my lesson, Trevor.
Much easier read and puts it all in perspective. But yourself, Mark, I mean, okay, you've gone through, you're a traditional marketing guy. You've had to, learn the new ways of doing things. You're a consultant, you're a speaker, and all of that I said in the intro. But you've gone through various incarnations of what you call community. Can you tell your story on that? Because you are the solopreneur. You are capitalizing on your personal brand. You're building your reputation and profile all the time. What's your story from a community aspect?
Well, the story's very simple and very short. I've been a total failure up until the last year or so, and the reason is I've never been able to transcend that hurdle of audience. Now, an audience is great. I appreciate my audience. These are the people who hire me. But an audience is a cult of personality. And I've never been able to transcend that. I've tried to start communities. And Trevor, it always ended up that if I didn't drive the conversations, nothing happened. So there I was, back at the beginning again, a cult of personality. So I had this weird opportunity to launch a creator coin in, I guess it was 2020. Or was it 20? Yeah, I guess it was 2021, actually. And I mean, that's a topic for a whole other show. And ultimately, the whole platform crashed with the crypto winter. But this interest in learning about Web3 created a purpose, an intersection between my coin and a community of people who was curious about what I was doing. So I said, let's learn about it. Now, it's not just about me. We're teaching each other. And we've got people coming in that are smart in a lot of different topics. And so the community has now morphed into a place where we learn about the future of marketing together. And by the way, it's free, it's open. Anybody who wants to be part of it, it's on Discord, which is a little crazy and noisy, but once you get used to it, it's a lot of fun. So on my website, there's a little tab at the top that says community, and there's instructions on there. If you want to be part of the community, come on board. We're doing experiments with NFTs. We're doing experiments in the metaverse. We're even co-writing a book together, which has been a lot of fun. So, and the biggest lesson I learned, it's probably the lesson anybody learns, especially if you have, you have a strong personal brand like I do. You sort of expect that, okay, well, you're the Papa Bear here, and this is where I think things are going to go. I'll tell you a funny story. When I started the community, I thought, well, let's create these little chat rooms. This is what people will want to talk about, because this is what I talk about: podcasting, personal branding, the writer's journey. And today, it's maybe we've been there a year and a half. Those are the emptiest rooms on the site because the community took it new ways. We're talking about artificial intelligence. We're talking about the metaverse. We're talking about, a lot of ethics issues, the ethics of social media right now. And it's fascinating. They've led me in new directions. This is now my university. This is where I'm learning. But you have to have the courage to let it go and nurture the growth and the ideas. Dana had a great quote. She said, my job isn't to have a structure. My job isn't to, have a staff. She has no staff. It's all volunteers. Her job is to create a safe culture. And that's my job in the community.
Mark, that's a great story about what you've gone through, and just picking up on that, it seems to me that it's, prior it's been about you. You're the one to kick it off, of course, and then you start driving it. But with this one, it was, there was an area or a topic, or a very large topic, Web3. Let's just bundle it all in, and that's what people are interested in, and they can talk around that. And then over time, things might morph and change. But because you had that focus and that vision to talk about and to explore those ideas, is that what probably has given it a bit more legs?
Well, a community has to be built on trust. I mean, if you don't trust the information and the people that are there, why would you ever go there?
Yep.
Now, how do you know it's a place you can trust? A lot of the time, it's because there's a person there you can trust. You may not trust the people. You may not trust the content because you haven't been there before. You don't know. So I think there is a very important link between the personal brand and the community. Maybe that personal brand is the community manager. Maybe it's a business leader. Maybe it's an entrepreneur. Maybe it's someone that, who you just believe in and you admire. But that's what's going to get you in.
Yep.
And what's happening now, Trevor, is there's so much exciting ideas going on in the community. People are sharing it outside the community. It's not me. I'm not recruiting people. And people are seeing their friends saying, oh, look what's happened in this Rise community. We just did this experiment in the metaverse. Look how much fun it was. And people are saying, how can I come in? How can I join? I haven't brought anybody into the community in at least 2 months. They're all coming in because they're being invited by people who are already there.
That's how growth like.
That's how Dana grew Dana grew her community.
And it's not about shooting the lights out in terms of numbers, but you want to sort of see organic growth. How's that sort of tracked for you?
Well, I've been concerned about growing too fast because I kind of like the small, intimate community. I'm afraid of it being huge. And one of the things that Dana talked about in the book is that, 70,000 is too much. She said, really, once you get above 20,000, it's too much. So she's had to delegate and create a lot of, volunteer organizations within the organization to handle that. But I like having the personal relationships, really getting to know people. So for me, this is part of my learning edge. What happens when it gets bigger? I see people coming in with a little bit of consternation. How does that change the culture? How does that change the personality? How are these new people going to lead us in a new way? But that's part of my learning process to kind of trust the world, trust the system. If this is an ethical, values-driven community, we accept no toxicity in my community. And, if we have the right kind of people, it's going to go in the right kind of direction. And so far it's worked beautifully.
You mentioned, let's get into a platform at the, you mentioned Discord, but of course, you need a gathering place, you need
Yeah.
a campfire, people to come to make that community interactive, and that's where we can do it online. Of course, you've got offline communities as well, and then it might be as simple as having a messaging service such as Slack, and Discord's not that much different. So, what are the platforms you see people using? You mentioned Dana has she got the whole 70,000 on Facebook?
Facebook, one Facebook group. Yeah. Well, you mentioned some of the big ones, of course. Facebook by far has the most communities. And actually, this was interesting to me. The average person on Facebook belongs to 5 communities. That's pretty interesting. And Facebook is kind of out of fashion right now. But the advantage to Facebook is, first of all, there's a lot of proven technology there. There's a lot of great collaborative technology there. And the most important thing for many people, it's organic to their daily lives. So you go onto Facebook, you say, oh, something's happening in my community. You don't need to click onto Slack. You don't need to click onto Circle. Most people are already on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. In some cases, Slack is if you're in the corporate world. So one thing to consider is what's organic to your community, to your fans. I went on Discord kicking and screaming. I did not want to go onto Discord. I don't like Discord. But my community said, look, if we're going to learn about the future of marketing Web3, we might as well learn this too.
Yep.
All right. Can't argue with that. So Here we are. And, it's a little chaotic, but it's also a ton of fun. I'm kind of addicted to my community.
And I guess the other part of it too is that you mentioned Circle. So Circle is a commercial one. It's very robust, and it's got you can do. It's probably for a more sophisticated part of community where there's the forum, and then you can have live streams and content and courses and all sorts of things. So that's probably more for often a paid community, I would imagine there. But LinkedIn's got those groups. They don't call them communities, but they've got the groups, which like Facebook. And a lot of if your audience you're in B2B and your audience is there, you can set one of those up in a couple of clicks. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot of opportunity on LinkedIn. So many of the groups on LinkedIn are ghost towns, and I don't really understand why. I don't know why Facebook kind of won when it comes to communities. But Facebook LinkedIn has a lot of. There's a lot of great people there, a lot of helpful people there, and they've got a lot of great technology for community. So there's a huge potential there.
Is that because Facebook are probably less businesses?
Yeah, I don't know.
More around common interests?
I really don't know. I look at even some of the communities I'm involved in with LinkedIn. These are people who I know, I trust, and I love, and they're just not active there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and it could just be the business side of things, but Facebook did go through a period where they really, how they all do, they want to push video, so they push video. They want to push live, so they do a big number on that. And I do remember when they were going very hard on groups, and maybe that was the kickoff that they needed. So offline's really important too, and I'm going to throw a couple of the case studies at you if you could walk through them. One is a mutual friend of ours, but Jessica Phillips, who runs Social Media Week in, is it Lima?
Lima. It's Lima.
Lima in Ohio. What's her story? Because that started off as definitely offline.
Well, I went to her event last year because I was bored. You have to be bored to go to Lima, Ohio, really. There's literally nothing else there. It's actually one of the poorest cities in all of Ohio. Ohio's a pretty big American state. And So it was like sort of the end of COVID. I missed my friends. I hadn't been anywhere. And Jessica was having this event, and all these people were coming from all over the country. I thought, well, I'll drive up and go. It's like a 7-hour drive or something. And when I get there, it is literally like a family reunion. People are there in their T-shirts and their shorts. They're hanging out in the lobby, drinking beer, playing games. People are bringing coolers from their car and their truck. And, when people come through the door, everything stops and then they hug and then they go back to the beer and the games. And they're bowling and they're, it's like, wow, there's some vibe here I have never seen before. And that's the way Jessica intends it. It's really about the people and the relationships. If you come to the conference, you come to the conference. I felt a little unsettled when I went there because it's like, I don't know these traditions. They were playing games I never heard of before, but this is something they do every year and they have a lot of laughs. And it's like, oh, well, how do I get into this? And so they just, it really is this community where they have their games and their secret language and all their traditions. And it just builds over time. And once you go, you kind of get addicted to it. And every year, there's another guy quoted in the book about that conference. I mean, I think he drives like 13 hours from Texas to this. I mean, pardon my, English, but it's like a crappy little town in Ohio. I'm sure Jessica would be very defensive about that, but it's like you drive through the town and like there's this big oil company there and you drive for miles and all you see is like oil tanks and then these broken down houses. And what the heck am I doing here?
And so how is she, if that's an annual event and clearly over COVID, she probably didn't run the event and she's managed to keep people engaged. How has she been able to do that?
The community is really the Facebook group. And she said, it's just like a family. You keep in touch every day and then you have a family reunion.
Yep.
She said, I know every single day we are there. We are there to listen, to support each other, to help each other. She said, there is no business problem I could ever have in my life that can't be solved in this community. And people will come and raise their hand and lead and solve the problem. And so on the day-to-day basis, she keeps that emotional bond, that connection through the Facebook group. And then, and this is an important point, perhaps this is what you're getting at, is that in-face component is important. Almost every online community, I think every online community I featured in the book has an offline component.
Yep.
Because when you bring people together and they see each other face to face, it takes things to a whole nother level. Yeah. My community so far has been 100% online, but I've offered to have a party at my house in June. And lots of people said they're going to come, including one person from Australia. Maybe you know Fiona Lucas. She's planning to come, and so we'll see. But I'm excited because that literally takes relationships to a whole new level.
Absolutely, it does. And you've used the word earlier about trust, and you and I have discussed trust in marketing many times over the past. And trust is a big part of personal branding. It's the currency of today, the social currency of today. But people in that social media week in Jessica's community, they clearly trust her, and then from that they trust each other. As you said, you can go in and talk about your a business issue or a problem or something like that. It's a safe space. Yeah. And that's probably the biggest challenge for a community leader is to imbue that trust and engender that across the community, not just the individual, that's the starting point, but it's with each other.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think one of the most important insights in the book is how community turns marketing leadership and marketing management just on its head. We've mentioned Mark Masters, or hinted at Mark and his "You Are the Media" community several times. And I mean, I think he's sort of the poster child for this idea where he said, look, I've had to reinvent myself. This is different than everything I learned in business school. I've had to reinvent myself. And sometimes it's really unsettling. I'm still reinventing myself because these ideas of command and control and the message and creating an organization and teams, that's all gone. It's all gone. My major role as the leader of the community is to create a safe and inclusive culture and to dispense status. Because if people want to be acknowledged, they want to be heard, they want to be rewarded, they come into a community thinking, if I can be heard and acknowledged, that's why I want to be here. Status is a very important driver of community success.
Let's unpack Mark. For those, he's been on the podcast a couple of times before, but if people don't know of Mark, he runs You Are the Media. I'll let you tell. You've spoken at one of his events.
I've spoken at like 4 or 5 of his events.
Yeah, you have too. The conference, you were at the first conference. So Mark's story is that it started off, he was blogging, then he quickly turned to a newsletter and he built that up and subscribers. And then they had a lunch club where they came together. And then that moved more into education and he built I probably missed a couple of things. There was a podcast in there. Yeah. Then they had the conference, which you talked at the very first one. And then it just continued to build from there. And when COVID hit, they were doing a lot more online training and that sort of things. And now they have actually moved to Circle. They've ditched Facebook and making it a little bit more, I guess, structured around a Circle, the Circle platform. But you've been there firsthand. I feel very much part of that community. We're both on either sides of the planet to where a lot of them are. How has that worked for you? You clearly feel very comfortable going to Bournemouth and talking and that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, I think that's the power of really what Mark has accomplished there. He started this out, like you said, as a newsletter that turned into people that were meeting for lunch. And they said, well, let's do a little bit more and let's create this learning community. And now Mark said, I think this is so significant. His community is the business. He had a B2B marketing agency.
Yeah.
And now the community has become so powerful. And that's part, I think, of the unsettling transition for him. It's just like, this is just so new. But he is not the only example in this book where the community has become the business. It's certainly something to consider. And he mentioned in the book, he said, there's lots of people in the community. I'm not sure they even know the name of my business. But I've become a brand. I've become known because of this community. And he said, this is my legacy, which I think is very profound.
And when you talk about letting go, he even in the newsletter, which is, the bedrock of the community, he lets people take it, introduce themselves and he highlights someone each time. Right. That's a simple tactic that can be used. But, he's had others host the events and run things and take over activities. And I think that's amazing. I mean, that's what you were talking about, letting go. Yeah. And at some point, that's, I think, when you have got a community, when that happens, when you can do that.
Yeah. And like, it was just a significant moment, I think, when I'll never forget that the first time somebody in my community had an idea. They wanted to change something, do something new. And I said, great, that's a really good idea. Why don't you do it? They said, okay. So they did. So really, I mean, I just keep saying yes to ideas. I mean, they're looking to me like, it's my community. But I said, look, it's not just me. If you want to create something, go create something. These metaverse experiments that we have are just incredible, and I have nothing to do with it. It's run by people. We have a guy in Ireland, Fiona in Australia, and Yuri in Belgium, and I think someone from America. They all get together and they create these things. For the holidays, we had an AI art contest. I think we had 50 pieces of art. So we learned how to vote on art in the metaverse. We also learned how to clap. That was significant. And we took pictures of each other, like in front of our art in the metaverse. And then we all jumped to another metaverse, and that was on a ski slope, and there was a hot tub. And we learned how to jump in a digital hot tub. And I mean, hands above the water. But but I mean, I was sitting in a hot tub watching the sunset over the mountains with people from all over the world. And I think there's another important lesson there, and that is, number one, I had nothing to do with it. I mean, I just went along for the ride. This was completely organized by other people, and it was the most amazing, memorable, joyful experience. But the other key idea is that what happened after that, people took pictures, screenshots of themselves in front of their art, or dancing with their friends, or in the hot tub with the sunset, and they shared it on social media. Now think about the power of that from a marketing standpoint, where you create something so powerful, so unmissable in the community that people share it outside the community. That's why, I haven't had to recruit anybody into my community, because people are bringing their friends in. People are seeing these events that we're having, and they're saying, how can I get involved in that?
And with all the technology, and the metaverse is fantastic, and that's the sort of the 3D, and you're walking through virtual worlds, and the VR and virtual reality side of things, which is going to continue on. It will really add weight to the whole thing of community, because we can be there in person rather than just writing on a Facebook group. But they will still fall flat if you try and go sexy with all the metaverse stuff, and you haven't got trust, and people aren't, connecting with each other, and there's no emotional bond. So the tech is great, and it's going to make a big difference, but really you've still got to have that personal brand, the leadership, that side of things, and the trust and the letting go. There's so many elements, Mark.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving pieces. Creating a successful community is not easy, but I mean, one of the things I talk about in the book is, I've been in marketing for 40 years. I can say with some authority, this is the hardest time to be in marketing ever. So if marketing is hard, why not work on something that you think has a better chance of working than, Google ads? And I think we ought to be looking at community as an alternative. We ought to be experimenting with community. And it is a different way of thinking. It's a different sort of mindset. But there's also a tremendous payoff.
And speaking of, I'll finish up on the metaverse side of things. I've at this point in time, it may have gone to air. I don't think so, but it will be very shortly. I've interviewed Mitch Jackson, who's an attorney in California, and you mentioned Mitch and his son Garrett in the book, because one section of the book is around Web3 and all of that sort of stuff. So if you're interested in that, as a listener, I recommend you check out that interview with Mitch and all the things you're talking about, the Web3. I mean, again, it's you're exploring that through the lens of community.
Yeah. And I think there's two important parts to that piece of the book. Number one, obviously, as you're hinting at, is that all this technology just gives us new ways to get together. But there's another really important part of this, that the technology also gives people a new place to hide. And this is something that really hasn't been part of the conversation in PR sales and marketing, that many businesses depend a lot on social listening platforms. We look at conversations, we look at feedback, we look at complaints, we do sentiment analysis, what's going on LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook. Well, what happens when a big segment of the population aren't on those platforms? They're on places that aren't being detected by social listening platforms. And that is another one of the implications of these new technologies. If people are meeting in the metaverse, that's not going to show up on Sprout Social. Look at how Discord has just blown up. And these are private walled communities. No social listening platform can dig into my community and see who's there and see what they're saying. So all the movement, all the momentum of social conversations is moving away from these traditional social platforms and moving into these digital campfires. So this is, and I don't have a big answer for it in the book. I don't have a big solution. It's just, hey, be aware that this is part of the change and part of the way that community is going to be changing marketing.
And if you're an expert or an emerging thought leader, or you're running a business or trying to build a movement more so, and a lot of people, not everyone's just out to build business. Let's face it. The people who are out there kicking goals are often ones who have got a bigger vision, and they want to change the way people think about a topic or an issue. They want to build a movement around an idea, an insight, that side of things. This is where like minds can gather. As you've mentioned a number of times, you can explore ideas, and it might be, the danger, as you said, is probably doing it around the personality and more so around the topic. But it could be around a podcast, which might be around a topic, could be around a book, which is around a topic. Let's not, Dana Melstaff's got 70,000 and it's growing big, but most of the communities work at a much smaller level, and they're more micro communities. So I don't want people to think that they have to, knock the covers off. In terms
honestly,
of size.
I think if Dana had her preference, maybe she'd have a smaller community. I love having a small community. There's a case study in the book. One guy has 30 people in his community, and it's just, he's blowing the lights out. So it depends on your goal. It depends on your purpose. And, so, I mean, that's going to be a challenge for me. If my community continues to grow, maybe we split it off in different ways. I don't know. We'll have to cross that bridge when we come to it.
At least it's organic growth, and that's the best kind of growth. You're not going out there putting ads to bring people in, and they've got nothing to, they're coming to have a look, but they don't add any value. So, Mark, thanks very much for your time. This is really it's an illuminating conversation. I love the whole thing about community, and look, even the early days of Twitter, I found that they were, from. I got on in 2007, but really around 2009, 10, 11, 12, I felt that was community to me. It could have been. I mean, Twitter chats. I think Twitter chats, that's a legitimate community. People gather and they know each other, they support each other. And, I feel the same as you. And those early days of Twitter were just so exciting and empowering. They were fantastic. Yeah. Bit different today. And who knows where it's going to end up. That's a story for another day. That is indeed. And it could change along the way. But, when you have that feeling of belonging, and that's why I love the name of the book, because it's around belonging. I think that's you've hit the nail on the head right there. What are some things, if there are some listeners out there who have wanting to build that movement, got those ideas, running a business, very passionate and generous, creating content, have been maybe thinking about a Facebook group or Discord or something that's a paid membership, which is a whole new ball game, but it's still based around community often. What's the best way for them to approach that in their head?
Well, I think it sort of goes through the progression of the book, where I start saying, do you have the right culture? If you've got a culture that's always be closing, it's not going to work, right? So be intellectually honest about the culture of your company, because that's what's going to show up in the community. The next thing to really look at is the purpose. The reason most communities fail, the biggest reason by far, is because businesses try to sell stuff. People don't want to gather in a community to buy stuff. They want to be there for something they're passionate about, something that they're interested in. They want to change something. They want to connect to something. They want to learn something. So what's the intersection between your purpose and what you're trying to do in this world and your customers? An example many people can understand is Patagonia. If you hear the word Patagonia, you think responsible, environmental, sustainability, outdoor recreation, and they've got a passionate community that believes that too. And so the purpose intersects. And then the last thing is a lot of people worry about, how do I get people to join my community? And what I found in every community I studied, Trevor, is that the first community members were already there. They were people that listened to your podcast, people that listened to your blog, people that maybe, belong to your social club. Maybe you see them for lunch. Maybe they're your biggest fans of your business, but they're there. And when you put it out there, hey, I'm going to try something new. I want to explore this topic, and I want some people to come along and help me. That even if it's 5 people or 10 people, that can be the start of a community, and you just fan the flames. And if you hit it right, then they start bringing in other people organically.
Fanning the flames. I love it. We'll leave on that note. The book is Belonging to the Brand, and available now throughout every outlet around the world.
Yes, thank you, Trevor. Thank you so much for supporting me, for being my friend, and being so very well prepared with your excellent questions today. It really means a lot to me. Thank you.
The reputation economy is here. The world today needs more genuine, credible experts and leaders to stand up and share their experience, their wisdom, their stories and ideas. Are you in?